Wilson pulls the trigger.
Welcome to Talking Jets, or, well, the cockpit. My name's Ryan. I'll be your pilot. Boys and girls, we just learned some news that Zach Wilson is going to be starting for the New York Jets versus the Lions. I already had this collaboration worked up with my buddy Jay from Let's Talk Lions. So, Jay, how are you doing today?
Bro, doing good, man. I was excited to come on, discuss Lions, Jets, see where we're at. But now with this news regarding Zach Wilson, man, I got a lot of questions for you.
Man, so I guess without further ado, we'll get right into it. Guys, Jay, if you could link your channel and drop it in the live chat, I will pin it to the the comment section, because I just realized I did not have that put in the description because I got flustered. Zach Wilson is starting versus the Detroit Lions. Apparently Mike White's injury, the doctors will not clear him, so it is Zach's time to start. This is going to be interesting, because I would have to imagine a lot of the fans that are hanging out with us right now are kind of thinking, oh no, I'm not sure how much faith I have in the switch right now. I mean, we've seen some pretty decent offense from Mike White over the course of his 3 starts, and now you get Zach Wilson. Has it been enough time to give him the mental reset? Does he recapture the starting role because of this game? Does he wind up playing any other games the rest of the season? When Mike White gets healthy, does he start after this? So many questions that I have, and I don't know where to go with it all. So I guess from an outsider's perspective, Jay, have you watched any of Zach Wilson, or how you feel on this kid? Whoop, he dropped. I'm sure he will be joining in. There he is. There's Jay.
I don't know. I was having some connect issues there. That's all me, man.
It's all good. It's all good. So from an outsider's perspective, what is your opinion of Zach Wilson?
You know what's interesting? I mean, like, earlier when he came off that injury, what was that, week 4 that he started actually playing for you guys? Week 4, week 5? Like, off the bat, I was like, wow, this kid, he's looking good. He looks like he's actually making the steps forward. He led you guys to like 4 W's in a row. However, there was this, like, I don't know, from what I saw, a very backyard mentality to him, where I felt like there would be moments where the pressure was on and he would just kind of rip the ball into random areas that I'm like, I don't understand what we're doing here. And it was kind of that air of like, I can make it happen. I guess you have to have the confidence of Josh Allen or a Patrick Mahomes, where you think you can squeeze the ball in spots, but sometimes you just threw it to the middle of the field where I was like, I don't know what you saw, what you wanted. So, Zach Wilson, I'll be honest with you, dude. Between Zach Wilson or Mike White, I would much rather the Lions take on Zach Wilson here. So hearing this news makes me a little bit happier, but I would love to know from a Jets standpoint where you're at, what you think.
Yeah, I mean, when I'm looking at the Lions, I'm kind of seeing a team that it's almost like the sweetheart sort of situation. It's like I'm looking at like the Bengals from last year, and I thought my Jets might be able to sort of be that, because you guys were on Hard Knocks. There's a lot more insight into your organization this year. I like the Lions. I like where they're going. I like the youth and the movement that they're making. I was confident at the beginning of the year that this would be one that I could pencil in as a W, as I'm sure most Lions fans were probably feeling the same way about us Jets. Now, with the tear you guys have been on, I'm not sure what to make of it. I mean, I'm pretty confident in our defense, but the offensive side of the ball going against your defensive line in particular has me a little concerned.
Sure. Yeah, dude. No, it is funny because, like, I look at the Jets and the Lions. We're 2 teams right now that are both extremely physical and young. There's this young physical mentality to both of them. However, both teams in playoff contention, right? And this is what sucks is, man, I'd love to see you guys be able to squeak in the same way I'd love for us to be able to squeak into the playoffs, because I love that underdog mentality. But I'm like, oh my God, I hate that we have to go through you, because your defense is insane. Now, I know you just talked about our D-line, so I'm sure we're going to talk about it all. But yeah, our D-line has figured out a way to start rolling. For the last 7 weeks, the defense we're watching, ever since we played Chicago, they have started to actually gel, come together, and our rookies are looking incredible, making a huge impact up front between our second year Aleem McNeil, from Aiden Hutchinson, James Houston. Like, there is a lot for your O-line to worry about, but I'm not sure. Tell me about your O-line. Do you feel confident in them being able to protect Zach Wilson?
No, not at all. Based on what we've seen the last few weeks and the whole season. I mean, we're down to like left tackle, right tackle, like 6 at this point. We lost Becton in the beginning of the year. Fant went down for a little bit. He's now back. Brown went down for a little bit. He's back. So technically, I guess we have Brown and Fant, which is, maybe our better situation at tackle, but we're down to our backup guard. We lost Elijah Vera Tucker for the year. A lot of Jet fans are feeling like, man, if we had Breece Hall, if we had Elijah Vera Tucker, if we had those starting guys, what does this team look like now? Because there's so much reliance on the quarterback and spreading the ball to the weapons that guys are just trying to tee off on the quarterback, trying to bring pressure on, especially on the right-hand side. We only just got Fant back last week. So it's going to be interesting. I'm hoping for a lot of really quick releases. With Mike White, I didn't have to worry because it was like 2.5 second release and the ball's out. With Zach Wilson, it's closer to 3.5 seconds, and that's him dancing around. I mean, he's not necessarily in the pocket for 3.5 seconds, but he's holding on to the ball until he throws it for 3.5, and that doesn't usually lend itself to maybe the best decision making.
Yeah, dude, if you played us week 6 or earlier, I really, you guys would have rolled us because Breece Hall, and we couldn't stop the run. The Lions were letting up the most rushing yards in the NFL. Over the last 7 weeks, we haven't let up over 100 rushing yards total. Like, the Lions defense and the D-line stopping the run has figured it out, and no Breece Hall for you, man. That's detrimental coming into this game. We stopped Dalvin Cook. I think Dalvin Cook had 14 yards total against us last week. Like, Dalvin Cook who? So coming into this game now at this point, I think the best bet for you guys is us coming off such a high win against Minnesota, and that emotional win, making sure they didn't clinch the division on our home turf. And like, there's that aspect of maybe kind of tapering off, falling off. But we did already win once in MetLife this year, so.
That is true. You guys aren't. It's going to be a little bit colder this time around. So I'm really hoping that like the emotional high. Like, when I think about it in like a Jets perspective, we haven't really had a really high emotional win in quite some time. But like back when the Jets beat the Patriots in the playoffs, it was like, wow, that was our Super Bowl. Like, that's almost how I'm hoping it feels like for you guys. And then you kind of have that letdown game on the road in the cold. You're on this great tear. What have you guys won? 6 of 7 or something like that?
6 of 7. Yep.
That's impressive. That's really impressive. You guys are due for a loss, and hopefully there's a spark there on the Jets side of things. How is your defense as far as like the short, quick slants, the bubble screens, things of that nature? Because with Garrett Wilson and Elijah Moore and, the tight ends, and even Bam Knight, our undrafted free agent running back, he should be starting for other teams in the NFL. This kid is incredible. In just 3 weeks, he has had 298 all-purpose yards, and I think it's 1 or 2 touchdowns. But like, impressive. Puts his foot in the ground and just goes. Like, a backfield of him, Breece, and Carter next year is going to be filthy for the New York Jets.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely an area where the Lions struggle pretty heavily. And even like once you start getting into our secondary, that's kind of a mess for Detroit. If Okuda's out there, and this is what's crazy. You look at last week against Minnesota, dude, like, yeah, Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson had a day. They did. But it's because Jeff Okuda, when he had the flu, he ended up playing like, I think 10 snaps total. And the moment he went out, in between those first 10 snaps, shut Justin Jefferson down. The moment he goes out, Kirk is finding Justin Jefferson all day. So our secondary is where there is a ton of struggle. So if you guys start making shots downfield, I don't know if that's a Zach Wilson thing or not, but if so, you might have a lot of success.
Yeah, that's going to be an issue, right? Because that's what the Patriots tried to get the Jets to do earlier this year was, hey, we're going to take away the running game from you. We're going to sell out. We're going to stack the box, and we're going to force your young signal caller to make the correct decisions in a split second while we pin our ears back and go after him. And that's just not good for Zach Wilson. He starts getting happy feet. He starts dancing around. He starts doing the little twisty spins in the backfield, and then you're dropping back 15, 20 yards. You get sacked. It's a whole mess of chaos, and the timing of the offense gets totally thrown off. Yeah. In the Jets locker room, there's been a little bit of divisiveness. There's definitely been a backing of Mike White and more of a let's put Zach on ice. I thought he wasn't going to start again the rest of the season. There's no way. I thought they were doing the full mental reset, and to see the shots that Mike White took last week, to see this happen is a little frustrating.
Yeah, he got hammered. I cannot believe him even being able to get up. Like, what a tough dude. And that's like all the credit to him. It's funny because where is Mike White out of? Where is he from?
He's from so he was drafted by Dallas in the same year as the Darnold draft. I'm forgetting the name of the school off the top of my head. Yeah, so he was like a 5th round pick then, was on the Dallas team, was cut. I think they were trying to stash him on the practice squad, and the Jets wound up poaching him from there. So when Sam got mono, that's when White was brought in. So so he's been kind of sitting and learning. He's gone through like the Gase years and like all this other stuff. Western Kentucky is where everyone's saying he's from.
Western Kentucky. Yeah, I'm seeing that in the chat. Okay, what's interesting is like, so I grew up in Jersey, and Mike White, I gotta say, like, he represents a lot of what like Jersey is to me. Like this attitude of super confident, watch me. Like this, like, nah, like you don't tell me what I can't do. Like he has that mentality to him, and that's something I love seeing. His confidence scared me coming into this game. And man, out of our next 4 games, this is like the one that Lions fans are scared of the most. We're like, if we can beat the Jets, we're gonna run the table. Not worried. But the Jets do offer the most cause for concern.
That's nice. I like hearing that from like another team's fan base because, like I said earlier, we each other's fan bases were penciling this one in as a W in preseason. Like we got to get that one if we want to do anything. Like it's nice to see our teams talked about in that light because you guys are just totally flipping the script on where you were just a year ago. Now I want to hear from you about your starting quarterback and Jared Goff because I saw him go off the last few weeks, and I have a lot of faith in our Jets defense. But like, am I being overconfident? Like, what's going on? Is Goff for real over there?
Bro, I'll tell you this: if you guys were coming to Detroit, I would pen this game in as a W for Detroit. I would because Goff in temperate climate, in a nice dome or in good weather, is a stud, and he has been a stud this season. I mean, the guy the last 3 weeks threw for 340 yards, 330 yards the next game, multiple TDs, no picks. Like he has been on fire, and it's because of our O-line. Our O-line is giving him time to basically play 7-on-7 ball. But where the Lions are scoring about 28, 29 points per game, and I know the Jets are shutting offenses down to what, 18 points per game?
Yeah, it's pretty low.
Our offense on the road is only scoring 18 points per game. And what scares me is Goff in bad weather. In cold, in rain, in snow, he becomes this turnover machine. So it really comes down to him. Can he flip that switch and actually on the road compete? Now, I don't need him to throw for 330 yards this game. If he could throw for 240 and it turns into us playing Chicago again and our defense really stepping up and the run game happening, then I'm feeling safe, but not secure, if that makes sense. So Goff is looking good, to answer your question. It's on the road in bad weather that scares me, and that might be exactly what we're coming to here.
So that's what's like, I'm kind of like licking my chops. I'm hoping we can kind of lean on that. Robert Saleh, apparently the last 4 times he's faced Jared Goff is undefeated. So I'm hoping there's a little bit of knowledge on the back end of there. I mean, it's not obviously not the same team, different players. I love Jameson Williams, by the way, your young wide receiver. Like I haven't had a chance to watch him since he came back from the injury, but like talk to me about him. How are Lions fans feeling about the kid from Alabama?
J-Mo he's an immediate legend here in Detroit. First of all, Brad Holmes being able to move up in the draft to snag him. Brad Holmes, our GM, last 2 years, pretty sure the guy's a wizard. I don't know what's going on, but he is killing it. Like his draft picks are like 85%. Like he like starters or coming out making plays. It's incredible. The rebuild is working here in Detroit. And those are words I've never said before in my life. So there's that. But J-Mo, dude, obviously he's been injured since that Alabama, championship game. So he got his first start. We saw him out there against Jacksonville 2 weeks ago. He ran, I think he was in there for a series, maybe. After that, nothing. He had 1 ball targeted to him, didn't get it. So last week against Minnesota on the first drive, J-Mo hit him deep. It was busted coverage, 41-yard TD. He ran it like, I don't know, top speed, 20 miles an hour, something crazy. Kid, and you're looking at him, you're like, people passed over him because of the ACL injury, which I don't blame you for passing over a guy where you're like, okay, we need production immediately. Brad Holmes looked and said, long haul, this kid can actually make a difference. He is making an immediate difference. He's electric. The fans love him. And he's wearing number 9, Matt Stafford's old number, so it's kind of fun.
When we were going through the draft process, I was saying the only receivers that I would want in the first round, or the only receiver I would want in the first round. No, I should say 2. I said 2 originally. Were the 2 guys that tore their ACLs. It was George Pickens and it was Jameson Williams. I was like, these 2 are just on a different level. Like the 2 of them, I was like, but they're not going to go, and it's too risky for the Jets. Like you can't take a guy with an ACL. So the Jets wind up taking Garrett Wilson out of Ohio State, just a pick or 2 in front of the Lions. There was that little run of receivers in the draft. You had Drake London going, I think it was pick 8. Wilson, 10. Was it Olave, 11?
Olave. Yep.
And then it was Jameson Williams at 12. And I think, you guys traded with Minnesota, didn't you?
Yes,
Wasn't that
we
an
did.
in-division trade? How did that work out? That's crazy.
Bro, I don't know. Again, I was like, Brad Holmes worked Minnesota's GM, and he gave him our 32 and 34 so that we could swing down to 12 to snag JMO. And it's paying off, and he's only been playing 2 weeks, like a total of 12 snaps. And you see the future that this kid has, because here's the best part. His vertical, along with DJ Chark. Here's my question for you, okay? Mm-hmm. I'm looking, and I'm like, your cornerback situation is great, I would say. So Sauce Gardner is different level. That kid is going to be a stud for years, obviously, looking at what he's been able to do. My brother's a huge Bills fan, and he's like, get ready. Sauce is elite, like different. But my question is, how do you expect truly to cover a JMO, a DJ Chark, an Amon-Ra St. Brown, a Khalif Raymond, and and Josh Reynolds, not to mention, there's a lot of speed, a lot of versatility, and I'm just wondering from a Jets fan's perspective, what's the game plan to try to shut all of our receivers down? Because we got a dirty receiving core.
Yeah, so that's going to be interesting for this game, and I'm not exactly sure where it is. Chat, you can let me know if we've gotten any news, but we're still 50-50 on whether or not Quinnen Williams plays this week. So there's a lot of fear in terms of the pressure we can bring up the middle. The guy's been an absolute monster. He's got 11 sacks on the season. He's been an absolute animal. And the way the Jets kind of handle their defense, they get up a little bit early, hopefully, in terms of offense, and then they pin their ears back with the pass rushers, and then they create stress on the quarterback that forces him into bad throws, and that's where the zone coverage or some of the tight man coverage. I think Sauce is allowed it was something stupid. I think it's 14 yards in man coverage this year or something absolutely outrageous. He has 1 touchdown given up, and it was a busted coverage on his part where he was playing zone instead of man, and Jerry Jeudy was just wide open by himself. So when the dude's actually on his receiver, he doesn't give up a lick. He'll get flagged a little bit here and there because he's a little grabby, but he might be the best cornerback in the league right now as a rookie, and it's been incredibly impressive to watch from Jets fans. But on the other side, we got a Pro Bowl corner in DJ Reed. This kid has been easily our best free agent pickup. And then in the slot, you have Michael Carter. So, at one point, I think Pro Football Focus had all 3 of those guys in the top 15 in terms of cornerback rankings. So, the Jets are loaded in the secondary. We have Whitehead, who's been known as far as our strong safety for kind of hitting hard and not necessarily wrapping up. So that might be a little bit of a concern. Hopefully he doesn't, hopefully he wraps and finishes plays. The linebackers have been a pleasant surprise for the New York Jets this year.
Okay.
I think a lot of fans thought that was going to be the area of weakness. Obviously, you and I talked about it last year. The Jets brought in Jared Davis 2 years ago to try and solve this whole problem, and it didn't work out.
And now he's back on our practice squad.
Yep, exactly. He's giving all the inside tips now, right?
Yeah.
He's got so the Jets bring in Quan Alexander from San Francisco. They have Quincy Williams, Quinnen Williams' brother, as the other linebacker, and then CJ Mosley looks like he's 24 years old. I mean, this guy's playing out of his mind this year. I thought before the season we were going to wind up moving on from him, but this dude's here to stay as long as he renegotiates his contract off in the offseason. But the Jets defense, I'm not afraid of any team. I just have the elite most confidence in this unit. Without Quinnen Williams, definitely a little bit more concerned. I don't know how you guys feel you are in the running game, but Quinnen has been a monster on that defensive line, and I don't know how that will impact the ability of us slowing down your offense.
Yeah, Quinnen Williams is a stud. He's a stud, and to Jets fans, man. I'm happy for you guys. You guys have actually like seeing you're building and it working and these young guys panning out. Like it's such a fun time. So like congrats to you guys. Quinnen Williams is unbelievable. Him being out, if he is out, man, our run pass option between the two is so balanced. Our run game, pass game is so well balanced. Because I look at the Bills beating you guys 20-12. And I mean, truly, even though we lost to Buffalo, it was because of some bonehead moves right at the end. But we have a better run game than Buffalo. Now, Buffalo has so much more, obviously, as they spanked us, and they are the number 1 seed in the AFC. I'm not trying to compare ourselves. But what I am trying to say is I do feel comfortable with our run game against you if Quinnen Williams is gone. Because our run game is good. Jamal Williams, leading TD rusher. I know a lot of that's within the red zone. But DeAndre Swift is finally looking explosive like he was. He's been injured throughout most of the year. He's looking week 1 again. So if he has an explosive game, we could establish the run right off the bat and be able to run that RPO. Offensively versus your defense, I think this game is going to be about. I'm talking like Little Mac Mike Tyson. It's going to be fun. I could really see it being one of the best games to watch truly this weekend as a whole.
Yeah, it's going to be huge. I mean, just the when's the last time the Lions and the Jets in the same season had like meaningful games in December? When we came into the season, that was it. That was all we were hoping for.
Yeah,
I just want to see I want to see the logo in the corner that says "In the Hunt." That's it. That's a successful season.
I'm with you, man. I just wanted 7 W's to know that the rebuild was going in the right way. I mean, if our 7th happens to be against you, I'm not going to complain about that. I might celebrate it a little bit. But no, man, it is wild seeing where these two teams are, especially because, like, man, the Jets are you guys are in the best division in football. You just are. Like, I know the Pats are struggling, but, like, in my opinion, I think the AFC East is stout.
We are loaded as a division. I mean, you look at both the NFC and AFC East, both divisions are just stacked. You know, every which way. I think, what are the Jets? Jets are 7-6, so literally every team is above 500 in that division. It's impressive to see, and there's young talent too. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of Mac Jones, but Josh Allen, young gun. Tua, young gun. Like, it's a young environment, and it's like right after Brady leaves the division, I'm hoping there's going to be like a little bit more openness to it. I mean, I guess it is open because it's kind of anyone's game. You know, Buffalo, you know, always going to be favored and whatnot. The Jets losing to Buffalo, it's frustrating because it feels like it's a lot of like us screwing up that has led to some of our losses, like our 2 Patriot losses, all on Zach Wilson. Like Zach Wilson had 3 interceptions the first Patriot game, just crippling turnovers. Second time around, it was 3-3 with like 2 minutes left, and the Jets were afraid to have Zach Wilson throw the ball and make the critical error. And that was the game where it's like, do you think you let your defense down? And he's like, no. And then he gets benched for 3 weeks. Oh my
God, bro!
I know. It wasn't good. So
man, you're
bad.
on the podium. Just say the right thing, whether you believe it or not. Say the right thing.
I think when I saw the clip, I took it more so as like, oh, this is a young kid just trying to get out of this interview and like just didn't read the room. Just totally just said a thing and just like, oh no, I can't believe I said that. And it like the media roasted him, the fans roasted him. There was like tweets from players and shit. It was not good. It was really not fun.
Yeah, holy crap, dude. No, I just think between these two teams, this is going to be a fun game. It's going to be a pretty heavyweight battle. The one thing, like when I'm actually looking at it, that scares me the most is knowing Goff in this cold, in this bad weather, and how he has performed in the past. You know, I just have seen him fumble it too many times. I've seen him throw too many picks. Knowing how good your cornerbacks are, like we have to establish the run early and let that play to our favor. If we can't get the run going, man, I think you guys sweep it. I think you guys take us.
Fingers crossed. So I want to hear from you. Any other position groups you kind of want to tackle, or should we start giving some score predictions?
Yeah, man, I would say the biggest thing for all you Jets fans while watching is our O-line is top 5, top 3 in the NFL. Our O-line is so incredible between Penei Sewell, Frank Ragnow at center, Taylor Decker on the left, and then you have our guards, Jonah Jackson, Stenberg. Like, our offensive line is just unbelievable, where they allow so much time for Jared Goff to sit in the pocket, allow the routes to develop. And this is where I think we have our best shot is if, man, those routes develop and we can hopefully shake some of these DBs, cornerbacks, whatever, like being able to let it go. Because I know the chat's going crazy and somebody was like, yo, I'm trying to gas up the wide receivers. Yeah, I am gassing up the wide receivers because, damn, they are good. And we don't get enough love. We're finally getting a little bit of love in the media, and it's because we're on a roll here. But most people watch and they just see Lions in the red zone. They watch Lions in the red zone and they're like, oh, okay, sweet, the Lions scored. Yeah, but everything we're doing from the 20 to get down to the red zone is truly creative and it's fun. And I just think our O-line is going to be fun to watch for Lions fans. D-line, if Quinnen Williams is out, it will be frustrating for you guys.
So let's do this. I'll do one. I got one more question. It's a fun one, I think, and then we'll do our score predictions, and I'll go to the chat and we'll talk. Sorry, microphone. I'll talk a little bit to the chat over that way afterwards. But I want to hear from you. If you were the Jets and I were the Lions, how would the Jets beat the Lions? And I'll tell you how the Lions should attack our Jets. So I'll hear from you first.
Wow. Yeah. Oh man, that's a great question.
Right?
I would have to say, how have you guys been while blitzing the QB? Like under blitz percentage, would you say you guys have been pretty successful or not?
We have, so if we get you into longer downs and distances, we have some pass rushers to get after you. Now, Quinnen Williams is a big part of that. Losing him, I think we slide John Franklin Myers, who normally plays the edge, back into D tackle, and then I think you see a little bit more of Jermaine Johnson. Bryce Huff, who was a undrafted free agent, or no, waiver wire pickup from the Rams, I believe. No, that was John Franklin Myers. Undrafted free agent in Huff. Incredible. This dude has the fastest get up and go off the edge. He might be the best situational pass rusher in all of football. He's going to be a restricted free agent. No one really knows about him. It's totally stealthy, but the Jets are filthy. I think we passed our season-long total in sacks 2 or 3 weeks ago from last year. So the Jets are just stacking, sacks. It's been impressive.
Done. Well, then that's it, man. You put that pressure on Goff. If you guys can get by and wear down the O-line early, get the pressure on Goff, I think that's where you guys will win. You could, because then what you're going to do is you're going to force him in this cold weather, in bad weather, turnovers, right? You put that pressure on him. Goff under pressure, especially under the blitz, has not been successful this year. I forget the exact stat, but looking through it, him, while being blitzed, one of the worst QBs in the NFL. And a lot of it's been at away stadiums, interestingly enough. So put that pressure on Goff, force the turnover. You guys will take the W.
So I'm interested to see if we wind up blitzing, because we're stereotypically, or not stereotypically, but generally speaking, we do not blitz. We send our front four, and that is it. We'll drop 7 into coverage, and you got to try and beat our secondary. But without Quinnen, maybe they feel there's a little more pressure to try and get to Goff, and if they have those sort of stats, under pressure, he's not that great, then maybe you start seeing a corner blitz or a linebacker off the edge, something along those lines. From a Jet fan perspective, if I were to say, how are you going to beat us? It's that defensive line against our offensive line. If you can force Zach Wilson to run around and panic and get the happy feet, it's going to be a long day for Jet fans because generally speaking, Zach hasn't had the best luck with the turnovers.
Okay. All right. That's huge. That's good to know. Man, it's funny how much comes down to the trenches. It's so funny because even in the draft, you're always looking for the sexy picks or whatever. And that's something I'm thankful for the last couple of years. The Lions drafting in the trenches specifically, hitting dimes as well in the trenches. So much of the game starts and ends there.
I love it. I love it. Guys, this is Jay from Let's Talk Lions. He has a great channel over there. Make sure you head over, subscribe to him if you ever want to hear some Lions insight. Maybe you're looking at some free agents that might be coming from Detroit. He's got all the knowledge over there. Jay, why don't you tell everyone what you got going on, and best of luck come Sunday.
Yeah. Absolutely, dude. Thank you for having me. First of all, Ryan, I appreciate being here. Always love talking to you just in general, but obviously as this is Jets Lions week, good time. So thank you for having me on. My name is Jay. I host a channel called Let's Talk Lions. We talk all things Detroit Lions. post game, and mostly me chugging beer if we get smoked or win. So that's just a lot of beer over there. But
Right? It feels like it's pretty similar to a channel that might be associated with the Jets that you might be on right now. So Jay,
let's go.
Thank you so much for coming on. Hopefully you guys get out of the game healthy, and best of luck moving forward.
Absolutely, best of luck. Go get into the playoffs, man.
Hell yeah, you too. Just not with us. All right, guys, that was Jay. I figure let's do a little bit of live chat comments and whatnot with you guys. I want to hear from you. Zach Wilson starting now versus the Lions. How does that impact everything that the Jets are going to wind up doing? Let's see. We'll throw some comment questions up here as we go. I'm just going to scroll back up into the chat. BYU fan is confident. Says Jets are running the table with Zach. I would love that. I want nothing more than the Jets to run the table. So if that means, Zach doing it, I don't care. I'm a Jet fan. I'm not just a Mike White fan. Rye. Let me get this in front here. Bam. Rye says, I'm optimistic. I think these 3 weeks have done something for Zach and changed his mindset. I just hope he can put 2 and 2 together. We need him to. And what does this mean with Mike White now? Because if Zach Wilson has himself a game, let's say it's, a bad weather game, he has 220 yards, a touchdown, no interceptions, the Jets win the game. Is that enough to move with him going forward, or do you like what you saw from Mike White and you want to anoint him the starter while he's healthy? It's almost like that weird situation of like with Mekhi Becton when he gets hurt. Does he come back as the starter? He didn't lose it by skill. He lost it because he got hurt. That's kind of where we're at with Mike White right now. And what do the Jets do as far as a backup quarterback goes? Because if now Mike White's not an option, I don't really want to see Joe Flacco ever take another snap as a Jet quarterback again. So I would like to see them go probably the direction of Chris Streveler as the backup. Do we actually get it? I don't know. This could be a weird one for Zach. I think when you look at how this fan base has kind of reacted to Mike White and the potential of like Zach after a 2-game losing streak for the Jets, not for Zach, but for the Jets, the Jet fans are going to be a little irritated at home. And if Zach starts having any kind of incompletions or like bad passes, a turnover, I feel like the crowd's going to let him know it. And I mean, it's a good thing for sure, but it's just, I don't know. It is a frustrating task, I think. Eric throwing some compliments towards Jay's way. He says, great guest. Love to see the collab with great content creator who isn't an ass. I really like Jay a lot. Jay and I have a mutual friend who's a Bills fan, actually. And I got talking and I was like, oh, yeah, the Lions, blah, 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 blah. And, I think we've known each other for like 3 years now. And great channel, like really well. If you like this channel, you will like Jay's channel from a Lions perspective. I feel like he has a really good production value. So definitely check that out. Andy Gonzalez says, Mike White had 2 bad weather games, right? He had the Chicago game that was like in the rain and he just threw it all over the yard. And then he had the Bills game that was like in the sleet and snow. So this game, I think it's supposed to be a little bit better weather-wise. Not a whole lot, compared to last weekend, but it's still, we just got snow, what was it, today? I don't know if we're supposed to get anything tomorrow, but hopefully it's more of like a running game. Ryan S. says, final stat line for our offense on Sunday. Oh, man. Final stat line, if the Jets have over 100 yards rushing, we win this game. That's the stat line it comes down to, right? If the Jets are in a position where they can run the ball and they don't have to rely solely on Zach's arm, then I think the Jets win. If you have to rely on Zach, we're probably looking at like 220 yards, a touchdown or 2, and then hopefully keep the turnovers to a minimum. I don't want to see any. I'd like to see him have a nice, clean game here. And I'd like to see Elijah Moore still get involved. Like the emergence of Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson has been so impressive. If they don't show out this week, especially because Corey Davis, I don't think he's going to be playing. He was still in the concussion protocol last thing I saw. Like, you're losing some of Zach's guys. Like, how does Zach play with Bam Knight? We haven't seen Zach with Bam Knight. Maybe there's a situation where I don't know. Maybe this is our, Brees Hall 2.0 with Bam Knight. I don't know. But stat line for Sunday, I think if Zach gets like to 220, a touchdown or 2 touchdowns, 1 interception, and the Jets have 100 yards rushing, we will win this game. If we are down and we have like 50 yards rushing and Zach has to throw the ball 40 times in like not great weather or cold weather at least, I don't particularly love that. Kevin Chatta says smart fans are going to feel Mike White got cheated. They're going to boo Zach Wilson. Yeah, is there like any kind of like conspiracy theory that like, oh, the doctors are just calling Mike White out so that way Zach Wilson can lead us into the promised land from here to the future and we don't have to worry about this Mike White character? I don't think that's where it's going, but I do feel like fans are going to feel cheated. It's like, man, like Mike White says he's able to play, feels like he's able to play. I think they're protecting him from himself, which is probably the best thing you could really do. You don't want to see the kid get hurt. Knobcraft says, I don't have faith in Salah to dress Strevler. He's too chicken and wants to deal with the blowback when Zach stumbles and bubbles through another fiasco. I think my concern with Strevler is I don't know if he can run the offense if Zach were to go down like the first series. Like, at least if you have White and then White gets hurt, then Zach can run the full offense. That's kind of like Flacco can run the full offense if Zach goes down. With Strevler, I think it's more exciting. I don't want to see Flacco anymore. There's nothing that I've seen from Flacco right now that makes me feel like we could win, consistently with him. And I feel like Strevler at least creates some kind of hiccups with this whole situation here. Austin Power says, if Zach wins, do you keep him in moving forward? It depends how he looks. If he has a day where he goes out there and he throws for like 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, it's going to make for an interesting conversation. I don't know how you don't stick with Zach after that type of performance. I think you play it off more so as like Mike White still being injured next week on a short week of rest. I think that's more where I would go with this. I think because Zach is going to start this week, there's a higher likelihood that he starts versus the Jaguars, and you get that whole Zach Wilson versus Trevor Lawrence, the media hype. Like there's a little bit of interesting convenience to this this kind of happening here, and I don't know. I would go back to Mike White if Zach has another one of his Zach games where it's like 150 yards, a touchdown, and an interception. Like that's just not going to get it done. Interested to see. BYU fans saying 268 and 3 touchdowns. Hey, that would just more than. He has 5 touchdowns on the season. So if he gets 3 in one game, kind of nice. Daniel says, Ryan, you got to know we are in trouble. I'm concerned. This is Zach Wilson's opportunity to win the job back right now and to start winning over the fans and the players, because this is medically Mike not being able to start. It's not like they're jumping him because he's privileged as being the number 2 overall pick. Now, maybe some people feel that way. But I think that Zach has an opportunity here. Not that he wouldn't have gotten it in the future being a number 2 overall pick, but he has an opportunity to really show out and prove to people that he is worthy of that number 2 overall selection and that he was just facing harder defenses earlier in the season. Hey, I'm getting things right. Let's go out and get a W. You want to be the big guy on campus? Get a victory here. Kevin says, Elijah Moore got to be crying right now. No more catches with Zach Wilson. Yeah, if you have Elijah Moore on your fantasy team right now, pull him. Pull him. Not worth it. Austin Power says, we aren't throwing 40 times with Zach Wilson, so expect receivers to have monster games. We aren't throwing 40 times with Zach Wilson, so don't expect receivers to have monster games. That's what you're saying. Mac Jig says, have we forgotten what Wilson did 3 weeks ago? Do we really think 3 weeks he's going to make it finally happen? Does the team buy into that? My take, no way. I don't think the players are bought in on Zach, and I don't think if Mike White was healthy, they would be starting Zach. I think Mike White would be starting the rest of the season. I would say this adds more murkiness because if Zach Wilson starts this week and you don't feel like starting Mike White on a short week against the Jaguars on Thursday Night Football, then I think there's some real concern over what the Jets are going to do next year, because I really wanted to use these last 4 games to evaluate Mike White. And even if, Zach has a bad game, I still want White in there for Thursday if possible. But I get the feeling they want that Thursday night matchup of number 1 overall pick versus number 2 overall pick, and it makes for some good ads and TV and whatnot. I don't love this. I have a feeling Zach starting the next 2 games. Sean says, I'm more concerned the team has no confidence in Zach if he starts missing open receivers. Yeah, if he starts missing open receivers, this is an opportunity for Zach to help change the narrative on him. But if he doesn't change that narrative, this could be a catalyst into people really discussing, hey, we need to get Zach out of the locker room. Like that, like if things go sideways, now I'm not hoping for that by any stretch of the imagination, but there is a very good pro and a very bad negative. Like there's not much middle ground here. The worst thing we could see is like a 200-yard performance, some throws that could have been intercepted that were dropped, and then like a touchdown on a fluky play or something like screwy like that. Kevin Chatta, the D got to be shitting themselves knowing they got to carry the team again. We got to get some points. Got to score some points. Mike White the last 2 weeks hasn't really scored many points. So there's, it's not just on Zach. Gangrene 44 says, why not dress 3 quarterbacks? You could dress 3 quarterbacks, I guess. But I would think with Quinnen's starting in flux, you probably want that extra roster spot. Oh, Green Bean's in the chat. What's up, Green Bean? If you want to jump in here, dude, I could pop you on. He says, Zach is back. Am I on crack? Let's go, kid. This is the big chance you prayed for. Completely agree. Completely agree, Green Bean. Rico says, I want nothing more than for Zach to ball out and shut up all the damn negativity because it's ridiculous at this point. Support the guy on the field. Rico, I completely agree. All of us in this chat, or I would think the majority of us, are Jet fans. First and foremost, you are a Jet fan. You care about the team on the front of the jersey, not so much on the back of the jersey. If you're on the back of the jersey, don't be a me guy. I mean, you can have fans, of course, but I support the team on the field more than I support any individual player. So fingers crossed. Patrick clearly has no idea what he's talking about. Money on Kenny Yeboah for first touchdown. Good odds, to be honest. Oh, God. Look at you go. What else you guys talking about in here? Robin says, if Zach throws a decent game, do we start him against the Jaguars? I think there's a realistic shot we start him against the Jaguars anyway, because I don't know if Mike White's going to be able to participate on a short week, because he didn't practice this whole week here. And we were kind of talking about if White starts versus the Lions, he's probably starting versus the Jaguars. So why would it be any different? Unless Zach really shits the bed. That's probably what I'm looking at. Stud City says, you, Matt, and Green Bean going on all at the same time. Sorry. Dividing the fan base. Euphoria says, 300 yards passing and 1 to 2. Y'all were happy with L's. I don't want losses. I want Zach to look like a competent quarterback. I want to see him hit the passes he should be hitting. I don't want to see these air balls and throwing things in the dirt constantly. Dan has a good game plan. Dan says punt, 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 and expect our D to carry us. We're going to need an interception. We're going to need a turnover. Dan B says, Ryan, didn't you want to see Zach play this year? Come on, man. No, I didn't want to see him play the rest of this year because I would have gone into next season with him in a quarterback competition. There's nothing that I can see from Zach these last 4 games that would prevent me from bringing in competition to go against him next year. For me right now, Mike White, his floor is similar to Jimmy Garoppolo, so I would tend to want to re-sign Mike White. Now maybe Wilson starting the last 4 games, and then going to Mike White after the season saying, hey, this is a legitimate quarterback competition. We want you versus Zach. We think you have a really great shot. Maybe he's a lot cheaper now because of it, because if you start Mike White and he plays well the last 4 games, then you might have to pay him a little bit more. But yeah, I'll be honest, I did not want to see Zach play the rest of this season. I wanted to see him kind of have that reset, go into the offseason, allow the players to kind of have some time to kind of forget about all the negativity that was sort of surrounding that relationship. And I think the locker room is going to surround Zach. I don't think they're just going to like totally be like, I'm done with this guy. I think because of the way this was done, Mike White being injured and not being cleared by the doctors, I think this probably, it's not like there's some smoke. I hope there's not smoke and mirrors. I hope it's not like, oh, they're trying to get another look at Zach because it's so financially important and resource intensive. I don't know. I did not want to see Zach come back this year, though. I'll be honest. Quest X, what's up, dude? Says, the question is, Zach goes out and is unsuccessful. We lose the opportunity at the playoffs. What will be the ramifications perception-wise going forward with the coaching staff? Well, they didn't pull Mike White because of his play. They're pulling him because of his injury status. So if Zach Wilson goes out and loses us this game, the season's on Zach. Our 2 most critical losses were the Patriot losses, and those were on Zach. So this one, dude, you've got a relatively, easier defense to go across. This is what we've been talking about all season. Zach didn't have the opportunity to go against the Vikings defense or the Bears defense. You know what? Put up or shut up against the Lions. That's what's going to have to happen. So if he's unsuccessful and we lose the opportunity at the playoffs, there's going to be a lot of negativity surrounding Zach Wilson. I fully believe that. If he has a bad game and the Jets get eliminated because we couldn't start Mike White, because we couldn't protect Mike White, and it's interesting. I don't know where this game's really going to go. It's a fascinating, I don't want to call it an experiment, but it's fascinating to see from I've seen competent quarterback play the last 3 weeks. So I know what that baseline is. If we continue to see, I don't know. I don't think 3 weeks is enough time for him to really figure out his footwork and all the issues that he was kind of having. I think it's really a reset he kind of needed. Stud City says, if the whole not cleared to play is legit, it's the best thing because it keeps Salah's promise to see who is your quarterback for the rest of the season. I hope the injury thing is legit. I'm not going to pretend that it's not legit. I can understand where some people may feel that way. Based on looking at Mike White, I think he knew that he'd have to play to try and preserve, the I don't want to say the small shot because I think he's earned himself a bigger shot to play in this league. But I think he knows coming in as a 5th round quarterback behind the number 2 overall pick that this franchise made just last year, they're going to give him a lot more opportunities than they are going to give White. And I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see how the team responds. Does the team feel like this was a calculated move? Or is this hey, Mike White took a lot of licks. He probably should not have gone back into that game. That's where I think this gets a little squirrely. If your medical staff was at the line or was at the Bills game last week and they said, okay, Mike White, you're clear. You're good to go. You're telling me a week off, he's not cleared anymore? What did you miss during the game that allowed him to get back into the game that you're not allowing him to play through today or tomorrow? I think that is a little bit of a red flag, and I think we'll find out this weekend if the players buy into everything. And hopefully it's, this is probably a best case scenario because you could probably pull the plug on Zach if he really does bad against bad defenses, because that's been the whole knock against Mike White, right? Now he's playing against the easy defenses. I don't know. Troy Flett says, how is he not cleared? The back, I guess, or the ribs. Doctors will not clear him to play. Let's see. Jeff H. says, Mike White is average. Either give Zach a chance and find out if he can be the guy or get a new quarterback. That's why the coaches get paid, to make better decisions for the team versus the fans. Well, yeah, look, I think most people will say that Zach Wilson's ceiling is astronomically high because of his athletic gifts, his arm talent, his legs, all that good stuff. But you're looking at the 49ers now, you're looking at Brock Purdy, you're looking at Baker Mayfield, who runs a similar offense in LA with McVay. Coming in on a short week, he has success. Like there's quarterbacks coming into this offensive system that are having success, and Zach Wilson just can't seem to figure it out. That's the concern, and a lot of it is smaller school. He never really played. I don't say never played in front of fans, but he really didn't play in front of many fans in college because of the whole COVID year. So like, I don't know. There's a lot of things to be concerned about, and if Mike White gives you the best opportunity to win because he can facilitate the ball to your playmakers and you're getting the yak, like I don't care how we get down the field and score a touchdown, which is kind of like when Zach was the quarterback while Breece Hall was leading us down the field for touchdowns. That's okay too, because Zach's not losing us the game. But I don't know. I think Mike White's average, and average is okay. I think Mike White is like a Jimmy Garoppolo level quarterback, and I would have gone after Jimmy G this offseason anyway. So why not bring him back? The teammates love him. And I thought White's ceiling was limited. I would say it's maybe not as high because of his lack of mobility, but I don't think his ceiling is low by any stretch of the imagination. EP Jet 21 says, please be gamesmanship, and we are starting White. Yeah, that would be nice, right? If we got to see that. My only wish for Christmas is for Matt O'Leary to stop singing Manscaped jingles. I'll have to ask Matt about this because I have not seen the Manscaped jingles, but I'm sure he's feeling fresh below the waist. All Gas No Gase says we can't give Zach Wilson off half the season every year. Well, yeah, you don't want to give him off. You're hoping that the reset puts him back into the correct headspace. Last year it was the injury, and then he got into the correct headspace by being off. But yeah, hopefully this isn't a trend. I want to see this guy on the field for 17 games every year. Oh, here's a good one. Jeff, just get me fired up already. Zach is 5-2. Mike is 1-2. Remember that Tebow made the playoffs. If Zach can develop as a passer to get the game, to slow down, then he is better. Yes, I agree. If Zach Wilson can become a good quarterback and get the ball out of his hands faster and make good reads, then yes, he can be a good quarterback. This whole 5-2, Zach, Mike, 1-2 is that one's like a triggering thing for me. Because guess what? What's Zach Wilson's record without Breece Hall? And then tell me what Mike White's record is without Breece Hall. Because I'll tell you what, it's exactly the same. 1-2. This offense goes as far as the quarterback can take it. And as far as the weapons can take it. And if the quarterback can't get the ball into the weapons' hands, like we saw earlier this season, it's going to, or I shouldn't say earlier this season, but like we saw the last stretch of games from Zach, I don't know. Hopefully this 3 weeks resets him. I Am Your Father says, Wilson about to light it up. I hope so. I really want to see this. Euphoria says, you don't hate your starting quarterback. You just give him a cold shoulder so he can earn their trust back. Yeah, I mean, you obviously don't hate your starting quarterback, but I don't think they're going to give him the cold shoulder either. I think they want to win. They want to get to the playoffs either way. And I don't think they care about who the quarterback is as long as the quarterback's playing well. So they're going to do the best they can do to be in a position to win this game. And then if Zach just isn't the guy, they're going to go back to White. Let's see. Highlander Prime. Ryan, never mind being picked number 2. Is it fair that a young quarterback with a low floor who needs lots of growing time be placed under such pressure to win when he's likely not ready to be what's expected now? Yeah, look, there's certainly an expectation when you're the number 2 overall pick, and I think there's a significant pressure as well. I think in an ideal situation, you have a veteran quarterback that you could have allowed Zach to sit behind for a year or two. But with the rookie pay scale, you want to try and make the most return out of these cheap rookie contracts while you can. So is it fair Not necessarily. And look, this year was supposed to be kind of an evaluation year, and we accidentally got really friggin' good really quick. So Zach is more a victim of circumstance about the rest of the team and him not progressing. Like, this is not the same situation as Sam Darnold where it's like, oh, we don't have the weapons to get Sam Darnold to win games. This is, we have a loaded roster, and Zach just has to do the bare minimum. Like, we are going to take the ball out of his hands. Like, we don't trust him to do even the bare minimum. That's where they were in that Patriot game. They were so panicked to let him do that. But yeah, look, expectations change based on how you perform throughout the season. So overall season success, but now we're talking playoffs, and you really got to perform if you want to get in, because this is a tough stretch we got to get into here. I shouldn't say a tough stretch, but it's going to be a tough evaluation right here. Dax Milne's mom says, if team goes back to White at any point this year, Zach is officially off the team in 23. There's no point in going back now, which sucks for White, but if you pull Zach again, then he's not the guy, period. No, I think you can do that. I think you can absolutely pull Zach, and you could say, just play it on the Mike White's healthy. He's able to go. My concern right now is that Zach, I shouldn't say it's so much a concern, but I think it's Zach gets to go against the Lions. Then it's a short week against the Jaguars. So I think Zach is going to start these next two games, in which case you have two more games, the Seattle game and the Dolphin game. What happens with those two games and who starts? Do the Jets win, but the quarterback looks shaky? Then you go back to White? Or do you say, hey, we're winning, even though the quarterback doesn't look good, we're going to continue to play him the rest of the way out? Or does Zach Wilson look good and we just kind of forget about it because you play the hot hand? I don't know. You got to play whoever's best for the team. Best guy plays. It should be like that at every position. Quest says, I, like many Jets fans, just want to win. I want the best options to make that happen. That being said, Robert didn't look happy during the presser. Yeah, my understanding is that they really believe in Mike White. I really firmly believe that. And I think having to put Zach out there, it's definitely a move they didn't want to have to make. Now we can all put our tinfoil hats on if you want to like talk some kind of conspiracy or anything. But this is not what you want to see if you're hoping for a playoff push right now. I don't think 3 weeks is enough time for Zach to get his head right. We'll see. He's got an opportunity. He knows we mean business. You play like that again, you're going to get benched. I think that's what it is. Ken Green 44, Ryan, I'm like you. I'm afraid to see Flacco on the field again. Do not want to see him. There's no situation where I want to see Flacco. Like if Berrios has to be the emergency quarterback, I'd rather see Berrios at quarterback than Joe Flacco. It's crazy. Eddie says, this will either be great or a disaster. There is no in-between. The in-between is what I'm afraid of. I'd rather it be like an explosive awfulness and then you just know it's White going forward, or like Zach goes off and then it's, okay, we're going to ride Zach because he's the number 2 overall pick and clearly the benching worked. Like that's a good situation. The worst case situation is like 150 yards and we win. And like Zach looks bad because now you're like, oh, well, 6-2 on the season, but he looks awful. Because there's some level of like winning that like even if the quarterback's bad, but you do like I understand the argument that some of the Jet fans are making, the 5-2 argument, but like 150 and like an interception, let's say it's 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, that's like the worst case scenario for the New York Jets because you start having those same things like, oh, well, we're winning, but, and you don't get to see Mike White, which is really, you kind of got to see Mike White so you know what to pay him in the offseason if you want to. Sean says, I guess Chris Sims got his wish. No excuses this week against the Lions D. You can't have any excuses against the Lions D. This is a defense you should be able to score on, and Zach was getting all the benefit of the doubt. It was all, Mike White got to play against the Bears. The Bears are awful. They don't have Justin Fields. Oh, the Jets are playing against the Vikings. The Vikings have a terrible defense. Oh, look, the Jets couldn't win against Buffalo. Mike White sucks. That's what that's the Zach Wilson sort of narrative in the defense. So this will prove it, right? Like if Zach's the guy and you think it was just because he was going against hard defenses earlier in the season, Zach has to show out this week, and I hope it happens. I want nothing more than for Zach to throw 300 yards, 3 touchdowns, and just be the guy. Like, this could be the catalyst. Let's send it to the moon. Let's go. But no excuses. Sergeant CVO says Zach's mom paid the doctors. Oh, God. Jerry Daly says, what happens if Zach does horrible with 3 turnovers and the Jets get blown out? Is Zach done with the Jets? If he looks that bad, I would have a very hard time seeing him ever play again for the Jets. If it's like if we lose out on the playoffs because of the way he performed in the 2 Patriot games and because of him performing very poorly against the Lions, that would be a kiss of death for the fan base on Zach Wilson, I think. I don't know if that necessarily means the coaching staff or the GM are done with him, but it would be like a damning indictment because I think the players are going to be irritated. Some guy says, Ryan, will Barrios be wearing a Zach Wilson shirt next Monday? I think they're going to support anyone. I think they'll probably tone it down a little bit because I think they do still want Mike White to play, but if Zach goes off, why not? Zach Wilson is good. Mike White can be good and Zach Wilson can be good. You could have Mike effing White and Zach good Wilson. My Holy King says the losses aren't even Mike White's fault. Mike White has to share some of the blame for the losses for the Minnesota game and for the Buffalo game because you couldn't get in and execute in the red zone. Some of that falls on the floor. Some of that falls on, the Vikings defense just playing really good. Some of that falls on Mike White. There is a share of blame. Now, his quarterback play and where he put the ball in position during those games, I'm not really concerned with because there was, we're talking inches opportunity. There was 4 or 5 plays we went over for the Vikings game where the Jets, if one of those 4 or 5 plays goes a different direction, the Jets wind up winning that game. And Barrios was in position at the end of that game to win that game. So clearly not Mike White's fault on that one, I don't think. The Buffalo game, I mean, how can you give White any crap for that because of the way he fought back just to come back into the game? There's my Holy King. Hit that like button. It's free of charge. Hit the like button if you're confused and not sure how you feel about this whole situation. The Highlander Prime says, why are they keeping Strevler around? He seems to have that competitive drive and intangibles that winners are made of, and if he plays, I can see him performing like Brock Purdy in San Francisco. He has that vibe. I think they're not playing Strevler because they don't know if he fully grasps the full playbook. And I think playing Strevler ahead of Zach Wilson is really a damning indictment on Zach. And I think they're going to try and not plummet his trade value quite so much. Stifler's mom says, I just hope Zach can show us he can be a top quarterback in the NFL because, man, I don't want to settle for mediocre quarterback play going forward. Yeah, Zach's the one that, if his draft pick hits, this team wins a Super Bowl. That's how much is riding on Zach Wilson. And what's crazy is, there's a lot of Jet fans that just want to get Chad Pennington-esque level play because we feel like we can win a Super Bowl because of how good this defense is. And I am in that camp. I do think, I just want average quarterback play. I would love to have average quarterback play from Zach Wilson because his legs are so lethal. But you hope, for the boom because if he hits, it really goes a long way. Jerry says, playoffs or not, I'm proud of this team. We did better than what everyone expected us to. I agree. I would say I would have 2 feelings on this season. If we miss the playoffs, I would say I'm proud of this team. I think we are a very strong team going forward, and I think there's going to be a lot of free agents that take less money to come to the New York Jets next year because of where everything's building towards. And I feel comfortable saying we have the right coach, the right GM, and everything like that in the building. That is good. I would say I'd be disappointed based on where we were at heading into the first Patriot game that the Jets did not make the playoffs. And to lose both Patriot games in the manner in which we did is incredibly frustrating, and I would call it a disappointing end to a good season. That's probably the best one sentence line I can kind of come up with. Yusuf says NFL script writers in there. Bang Zach Wilson, breakout game incoming. Yeah, this feels too scripted, right? Mike White was good enough to come back into the game against the Bills, but a week later, now the medical staff says, "Oh, no, I don't think you can go in against the Lions," which is oddly convenient because now you have a short week against the Jaguars, so that quarterback controversy you had is sort of solving itself. I don't know. I'm a little not sure how to feel. I'm bummed. I wanted to see Mike White play. Robin says, in my eyes, a loss to the Lions or Jaguars means the end of our season. Yeah, I agree. It's not, we're not mathematically eliminated at that point, but I would feel significantly less optimistic about the team winning potentially in the playoffs if we lose to either one of those teams. I think a loss to the Lions, if it's a bad loss to the Lions, like things could go sideways. And Salah's done a really good job of keeping everything kind of contained, like all the different situations between Becton going down and getting hurt and Zach getting hurt in the beginning of preseason to Mims and Elijah Moore requesting trades. Like this, I think we have the locker room to survive it, but man, a loss to either one of the Lions or Jaguars, you got to think that really puts a strong ding. Now the Lions one, because it's an NFC matchup, is slightly better, but because our division plays the NFC North, we all have that common opponent in the Lions. And I'm not sure how the other teams did against the Lions, so I should really look into that. But if there was a game to lose of these last four, Seattle's actually the one that you would prefer to lose because we are the only ones going against Seattle in our division, which is who we're competing against to get into the playoffs. Rob Anderson says, this is such a do or die for Zach Wilson. I'm rooting for him. I hope he can flip the switch. Yeah, I think all Jet fans are rooting for Zach. It's really, no one wants to see him perform poorly. I think it's scary that this is do or die. I feel like if we had been able to see 4 games of Mike White at the end of this season here, and then you allow Zach to reset in the offseason, you've now pushed away some of the maybe negative feelings that were happening towards the end of November. I don't know. This does feel do or die for Zach. He has to have a good game. If he comes out with a clunker, it's going to be bad. Dan NY, if the NFL is scripted, the Jets would have had a trophy already. The fan base single-handedly wins Rookie of the Week votes. The Jets being good would be great for the NFL. The Jets being bad is also great for the NFL. Oddly enough, when we win games, like the revenue made from like this channel isn't necessarily better. I think more people are actively engaged while we're winning, but a loss, like when the Jets lost and Zach Wilson, looked bad against the Patriots, like the views on this channel went bananas. So negativity does sell. Like we are just a battered and bruised fan base that loves pain. That's what it feels like. For the NFL, us Jet fans are so passionate. I mean, even look at the YouTube communities. If you look at any other team's fan bases, YouTube content creators, there's like the level of quality and the level of engagement that so many, like we have so many good creators that there is just a, how do I want to word this? We will be here through thick and thin. So there's not I don't think the NFL has to be scripted, and it could be scripted for the Jets to lose, and they would be doing just fine because we are suckers for all of it. White Mike says, it's found money. I don't see this team going to the Super Bowl, playoffs or no playoffs. I'm not stressing it. Those losses to the Patriots, the reason. That is shitty. Patriot team is so apropos. Yeah, this is a weird way of saying it's like found money, right? Like if you don't make the playoffs with Zach Wilson and you feel like you were going to retain Mike White anyway, by Zach Wilson playing and maybe finishing out the season, maybe that keeps the price of Mike White down. I just feel like it makes the quarterback competition be very murky. So maybe in a sense you do save some money that way on Mike White. I don't know. This season wasn't about making the playoffs, but man, it would feel good to end that drought. Cindy wants to know, what happens if Zach Wilson and Salah say White gets to start on Thursday? Or what happens if Zach wins and Salah says White gets to start on Thursday? It depends how Zach looks. I think if Zach goes out and has a 300-yard performance or a 250-yard performance, looks dominant passing the ball, isn't skipping the ball off the ground, he's hitting those wheel routes, he's hitting the easy routes, and he's doing the bare minimum. We're not talking about like excellence from Zach Wilson. We're just talking about like executing the offense. If he can look like Mike White has looked the last 3 weeks, Zach Wilson will not give up the starting job. Zach can win in the way he won those games prior in this season, and we will go back to Mike White on Thursday. My concern is the short week. I think the short week may have Zach starting 2 games in a row, and then at that point, maybe you start 4 games to finish out the season, so you get a fair evaluation on Zach against maybe some lower level defenses, so you can kind of, eliminate some of that part of the fan base that has been a little more pro Zach maybe, or anti Mike. Gregory says, Ryan, it's so depressing. Corey Davis is out, Zach's favorite target. Yeah, I mean, maybe it means he won't force the ball to him. I don't know. I like spreading the ball around. Kev says, do you think you would have scored better on your SATs if you repeated it in 3 weeks later? That's how I see the Zach Wilson situation. Yeah, my SAT score was not getting better with 3 extra weeks of preparation. It was going to be exactly the same. Either way. Now, I think it's a little different with quarterbacking, but I don't think his footwork's going to be fixed in 3 weeks, and I think that's been a big problem. Yeah, Oreo, I just hope this doesn't affect Garrett Wilson's shot at winning Rookie of the Year. It will. It will absolutely impact it. Zach has to continue to get our playmakers involved. He should get Elijah Moore involved. He should get Garrett Wilson involved. He should get Bam Knight involved. Like, all these guys need to be getting reps, and to see, like, if Garrett Wilson does not look good with Zach Wilson at quarterback for the weeks that Zach is currently playing now, it's going to be a damning indictment. The fact that, like, with Zach Wilson at quarterback, you had Breece Hall, who was looking like the odds-on favorite to win Offensive Rookie of the Year, gets hurt, and then Zach Wilson gets pulled, and now there's this other Offensive Rookie of the Year. Like, you had to not rely on Zach, but rely on Breece. He was Rookie of the Year. You pull Zach, and now the guy that's been playing all year with Zach is now in talks for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Like, to me, that's a damning indictment. If Garrett Wilson gets bumped out of that, you got to think his odds just dropped. I would think he's no longer the favorite with Zach being in there. I don't know the odds right now, but that would be something interesting to see if it's been adjusted so far. Hi, Lost Boy says, loyal Jets fans who we are through the good and the bad, through any adversity and circumstances. Yeah, we love pain. we love pain. It is what it is. Mike M says, Bam Knight will feast on Sunday. I hope we rely heavily on Bam Knight. It scares the crap out of me that, like, I don't want Zach to have one of those, like, 150-yard games. I want Bam Knight to just go off and, like, I don't know. Maybe I should want the quarterback to, like, know one way or the other. I would love, like, we ran so well we didn't have to use Zach. Now we go back to Mike on Thursday, and then we just do the same old reset. But I don't get the feeling that's what's going to end up happening. Charles says, the Jets should draft Anthony Richardson of Florida. I like Anthony Richardson. I don't like having to draft him in the first round. And the Jets currently are sitting at the 17th pick, and I believe in McShay's mock draft, Richardson went 10 overall, so he's not going to make it to the Jets. I didn't think he was going to be a first rounder, but it looks like he's a lot higher. I mean, his ceiling is definitely first rounder for sure, but I don't think he's going to be an option for the Jets. Tyler says, is Bam Knight in for Breece's old numbers? As far as, like, gaining yardage and whatnot, Bam Knight's been fantastic. I feel like we should almost look at Breece starting in the Miami game. Was it just Miami? It was like Miami, then the Packers, then Denver was when he went on a tear. Did he go off in Pittsburgh? I don't remember if he had his first good game in Pittsburgh or not. But it was a little bit of a slower start. Bam has kind of hit the ground running. Jerry Fitz says, hard to see how you could get cleared on Thursday after 4 days earlier. We will have Zach the next 2 games, but Mike frickin' White will be in no matter what. It's the same locker room. Mike White will be back if Zach performs poorly. If Zach has a day, I agree with Jerry here. We will see Zach for Thursday as well. And I think that probably means we get 2 opportunities, right? Like, you have a bad game, Zach. Guess what? You get an opportunity against the number 1 overall pick. This is the primetime matchup that NFL wants to push. I don't know. I hope we go back to White, but I have less faith we're going to now because of the short week. Larry Coleman says, I believe Zach will do an incredible job. Stop zoning in on Conklin because him and Davis are his favorite targets. I'm all for Davis, but Conklin, no. Let's put Ruckert in. I really like Conklin. Conklin's really good at getting open, and he's been a pretty decent blocker. The Minnesota game rubbed me the wrong way, and some of his early games rubbed me the wrong way because he had a few like fumbles that were recovered and whatnot. I don't mind him throwing at Conklin. I just want to make sure Elijah Moore and Garrett Wilson get involved because those were the 2 guys that saw just astronomical increases with Mike White at quarterback. And I think if you continue to struggle with Zach Wilson getting the ball to those 2 players in particular, it's a Zach issue. It's not an offensive scheme issue. It's not a targeting issue. It's clearly those guys have the juice to make it in the NFL, and he's just not getting it. Jimmy Jet says, according to Ryan, Brax will be the backup quarterback. No, not according to Ryan. I think Flacco winds up being the backup quarterback. They're not going to activate Streveler. I'd be very surprised if Streveler jumps over White. But I would prefer to see Braxton Berrios over Joe Flacco than Joe Flacco. That's what I was talking about earlier on. Scott says, Anthony Richardson was not great this year. He wasn't great, but it's the measurables. It's everything that he could be at the next level. It's a guy that you sit on the bench for a few years behind a capable starter. I wouldn't start him right away, but he has some measurables that are really impressive. He's like the raw talent of Josh Allen. So a team could get a really nice quarterback with him if they can give him a little bit of time. Rob Anderson says, I live in Winnipeg, Canada. We had Streveler here as our backup for the Bombers. He wasn't strong here, though a fan favorite. He is a gadget-type quarterback. Zach will be playing Sunday and Thursday if Zach plays well. Completely agree, Rob. That's some good insight on Streveler as well. Highlander Prime says, I think if Zach Wilson stops sailing his passes high and makes most of his short passes, his game will improve on Sunday. If he just hits the easy stuff, Zach Wilson could be such a good quarterback. Like, literally, he can make some incredible throws with his arm, but he is so awful at the easy stuff that it's mind-numbing. Like you look at Mike White, he's not doing anything amazing. He's distributing the ball to the guy that's open, and he's making the right reads. He's running the offense efficiently and effectively, and he's getting a ton of yak. That's what all these receivers are good at, the yards after catch. And Zach Wilson was bad at getting that. He was putting the ball behind his receivers, having them go low, having them go high, where they can't run and catch it in stride and get those extra yards. If he can do that, his receivers are going to get him that extra yardage, and he will look really good because of it. It's his own problem, so he's got to figure that out. Jarlene says, Mike White is a free agent. Does he have any chance of starting on another team that is in need of a quarterback like the Saints, Giants, Colts, or Buccaneers? Yeah, I would say there's a chance for sure. I don't know if a 3-game sample size this year and the small sample size we got from him last year is enough to get much money. I think if Mike White were to, say, not start or maybe start 2 games the rest of this year, I would say his best opportunity would be to take a 1-year prove-it deal with the Jets, with the players he knows, and go into a legitimate quarterback competition, because I do think it would be open-ended and it would say, hey, Mike, you were the guy. You were playing well. The locker room's behind you. Let's give you a year. If you can be the guy, you're the guy. I think it helps the Jets from a cost perspective because other teams may not be going after him. But, man, I would hate to lose Mike White for something, some moderate amount of money. If some team goes out and offers him $30 million a year, I don't want to see that. But at that point, if you think that's going to happen, you franchise tag him and you try to trade him. But I don't think that's the case. I think he'll be back with the Jets next year. Tom says, if we don't make the playoffs, there will be a quarterback competition in spring, which I'm fine with. I think even if we make the playoffs, I think there's still going to be a quarterback competition. I don't think there's anything I can see from Zach or from Mike White that would have me anointing them the uncontested starter for 2023. I think at the very least, you bring those two back to compete with the outside shot of potentially other quarterbacks, maybe like a Gardner Minshew or something along those lines. Oreo says, what are the stats Zach would need to have for fans to be okay? I'm sorry, Ryan, but I see Zach having 195 yards, 0 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown, and we win 17-6. That's kind of my concern, is like this offense has looked so electric, and if it looks stifled and we like sneak out a win, like let's say we get like a pick 6 and like a rushing touchdown from Zach after having a short field or something ridiculous. There is situations where Zach Wilson wins and looks awful doing it, that there's going to be people that are just pounding down the door for Zach Wilson to remain the starter. He has to perform well for me to want to continue playing him. But I do think for Thursday, he's probably going to wind up being the starter. Jerry Fitz says franchise tag, that's like $35 million. The franchise tag is $30.5 million for next year. It's the average of the top 5 quarterback salaries over the course of the last 5 years. So it actually went lower than it was on the previous collective bargaining agreement. But yeah, I don't want to pay White anywhere near that. That's that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying if someone were to pay him or offer him $30 million, Joe Douglas would have a pulse on that, and he would tag him and then trade him. You don't let a $30 million player just walk in free agency. Unless you want like a 3rd-round comp pick for him in 2024. But I don't see that happening. Let's see. Mike M says, Jimmy G or Baker? I would take Jimmy G over Baker, but Mike White before both of them. Riva says, Zach literally has not had one statistically good game in the NFL. Utter disaster. Yeah, I mean, his best game in the NFL, you're probably talking about the Titans game last year, maybe. I think his best game in the NFL was either the Jaguar game last year or the Bucs game that we lost last second. I thought he looked really poised. I thought he made some decent decisions. We didn't have our weapons in the Buck game. I don't remember the Jag game super vividly right now. And then obviously his 355-yard performance this season had 3 interceptions tied to it, so that's not exactly great. Kevin says, Brady wins a Super Bowl next year with this roster. I've said it before. I don't think it's crazy to think that. I think this roster could win a Super Bowl. I do think Tom Brady's washed, though. Like, when I'm looking at him on Tampa Bay, like, he's clearly not having fun, and I don't know how much of that is, like, an offensive play caller situation. Like, is something wrong with Leftwich compared to where it was previously? I know his offensive line was a little banged up for a bit, but he's got a lot of talent on that team, and he should be winning more games. And for them to be, like, negative in the loss column, that's a red flag. I think he could end up... I could see him ending up in San Francisco. I could see him ending up in New York. I could see him ending up in, an outside shot at Vegas with McDaniels being out there. I don't know. I don't want to see Brady in green and white, but I think there is a realistic possibility that could happen. Muttvile says, let's just rally around this young man and get the dub. Mike White, I love what he's been doing, but he's out. Next guy up, and hopefully he's ready for Thursday. Mutvile's perfectly said. Absolutely perfectly said, because we are Jet fans first and foremost. You want to win the game because we are Jet fans. I don't care who wins us that game. It could be Braxton Berrios at fucking quarterback. I just want to win the game. I don't care. Zach Wilson's our guy. He's our guy. I want him to do well. All right, guys. That was a nice little hour and a half long live. I'm going to head out. we'll try to digest this a little bit more. Maybe I'll come up with something a little bit later on. But guys, it's been fun. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. How you feeling about this Zach Wilson starting versus the Lions? How will it impact the rest of the year? Let me know in the comment section down below. And as always, go Jets.